My name is Virgie Townsend, and I am the author of this here, Because We Were Christian Girls. In some ways, Shua and I overlap. I am writing about Christian fundamentalist girls at the end of the 90s and in the early 2000s. This book is fiction, but it was certainly inspired by my own experiences growing up independent fundamental Baptists. For those of you who are not super familiar with Christian fundamentalism, I'll give you an example. I personally did not know the Duggar family, but I had friends who were friends with the Duggar family, and they're affiliated with a certain institute, and I have been to conferences for that institute, and my family had their books around the house. This took 11 years to write. And even though it's only 7 short stories, it required a lot of internal work to dig into the complexity of growing up in a cult, as well as the beautiful things, the reasons why people are drawn to cults, community, a sense of purpose. But of course, ultimately it's harmful. And I try to capture that through the characters' experiences. So I am going to start with the title story, Because We Were Christian Girls. This was the first piece I wrote 11 years ago. And at the time, I remember thinking, this could be a short story collection, but I cannot relive fundamentalism right now. And as a part of my healing process, this is where it began. Because we were Christian girls from fundamentalist churches, we wore our dad's old floppy t-shirts to the pool at our co-ed Christian camp. When we bobbed in the water, they puffed out around us, so we looked like jellyfish with Cancun or Disney World 1999 emblazoned on our chests. As we tread water in our jellyfish hoods, we sometimes wondered aloud why the boys' section of the pool was roped off from ours. If it was just the temptations posed by our sore new boobs, or if sperm really could swim long distances through the water, like my mom had told me the previous summer. The pool's main lifeguard was also the camp's assistant pastor, because it saved the camp money and God blesses good stewardship. Pastor DeMarco's blue eyes and lifeguard shepherd's crook reminded me of Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins, except Bert probably never told Mary not to masturbate or that the earth is 6,000 years old. During the day, Pastor DeMarco sat in his lifeguard's chair, surveying the gender-divided pool with a silver whistle around his neck and the crook lying across his lap. In the evening, he took to the pulpit and preached with sunscreen still glistening along his hairline. To use the pool, we had to take a swim test when we arrived at camp. On the second day, Pastor DeMarco lined all of the campers up, girls on one side of him, boys on the other, and we had to jump in one by one and swim the length of the pool. As we swam, Pastor DeMarco stood on the edge, curling his toes around the cement ledge and watched. When one swimmer reached the pool's halfway mark, Pastor DeMarco directed the next to jump in and begin. But if any of you jump before I say when, don't think I won't pull you out, he announced. This is serious. I need to have my eye on you the whole time. Got it? Pastor DeMarco was a man of God and a man of his word. My first year at camp, I hadn't yet figured out that when it was my turn, I had to wait for him to say go and blow the whistle. I just heard go and went. As I dove in, he screamed for me to stop. I hit the water before my face had a chance to turn red. All Christian girls know what happens when they disobey, even if it's by accident. We end up pregnant, kicked out of our churches, and used as examples in sermons about what happens to disobedient Christian girls. Eventually, we go to hell, where we fall for eternity in a dark, fiery pit, bound in rough chains that tear and burn our flesh, deprived of any human contact, except for listening to the eternal screams of other Christian girls who were also bound, falling, and should have listened to their elders. I thought about that as I sank to the bottom of the pool that day. And I thought about how a lot more goes into being a Christian girl than just believing in Christ. And when I hit the bottom of the pool, I thought about how long I could hold my breath. I never timed myself, which I regretted. I didn't want to go back to the surface. It was peaceful and blue at the bottom of the pool, and it wouldn't be up there. I waited. Pastor DeMarco hooked me like a fish a few seconds later, catching me around the torso and pulling me back onto the pool's cement edge. I closed my eyes as I lifted myself off the ground so I wouldn't see the other campers standing in a line around the pool watching me. My dad's t-shirt clung like a tarp and dripped onto my feet. My cheeks felt warm and puffy, like two hot air balloons burning from inside and rising. I quickly pressed the shirt's baggy sleeves against my face, trying to cool down and hide my embarrassment. Pastor DeMarco leaned in to meet my gaze with his Dick Van Dyke blue eyes. "Did I blow the whistle?" he asked. I could have told him that I didn't know to wait for the whistle, but if you think what happens to disobedient Christian girls is bad, you should hear what happens to disobedient Christian girls who sass their parents and pastors. I didn't want him to think I was arguing with him. I looked down and shook my head. "No, sir," I said. "What do you say to me and everyone you've made wait?" "Sorry, sir. Sorry, everyone." "Do you guys accept that apology?" he asked my fellow campers, but no one replied. He turned back to me. "You go when I say go, okay?" He smiled, straightened up, and leaned against the crook like an ancient prophet with his staff. "You can go now." I stepped up to the ledge again. He blew the whistle. This time I jumped, springing down on my thighs to gain momentum, and then leaping with pointed toes. For a moment, I felt like I was soaring, and I prayed as hard as I could that God would transform my dad's old shirt into a sail and fly me away to Cancun or Disney World or anywhere else. I had the honor of one of the short stories from Because We Were Christian Girls being published as an excerpt in this month's issue of The Sun. This story is particularly meaningful to me. As I was writing the acknowledgements and making the final edits on my book, my cousin, Virgie Townsend, who was more of a sister than just a cousin and a best friend and a part of my heart, died suddenly of cancer at the age of 31. And she was a scientist, a polyglot, an environmentalist, adventurer, and someone who loved the world deeply and made it a better place. So this story is Heavenly Bodies, and it is about, in part, the love between cousins. As the new millennium drew near, Aaron's family began preparing for the apocalypse. Jesus was going to return at the stroke of midnight, appearing in the New York skyline as the ball dropped on TV and the moon turned to blood. Locusts would descend across the land while the dead emerged from their graves to prophesy among the living. The faithful would be whisked up into paradise, their old flesh falling away as they assumed their glorified bodies. Erin envisioned herself gliding through the clouds in a new shimmering form, thin and incandescent. As the daughter of a pastor, she had spent all 14 years of her life waiting for Jesus to come back. Her mother homeschooled the children to shield them from the world's corrupting influence. Most of Erin's time was spent taking care of her 6 younger brothers and sisters. Now all of their sacrifices would be worth it. The signs were everywhere: famines, plagues, earthquakes, wars, rumors of wars, the persecution of Christians. Her father had read that computers wouldn't be able to change their dates from 1999 to 2000, and the world would be plunged into chaos. It was the perfect opportunity for the Antichrist to seize power and begin his 7-year reign of terror. Erin's dad had a computer at his church office for writing sermons and responding to church members' emails. He didn't allow his family to use it. "The internet has the potential for great evil," he said. Erin's cousin Stephanie was the only teenager Erin knew who had her own email address. Now Erin's family was visiting Stephanie's on this, the last Christmas season before the millennium. Stephanie sat Erin down in front of a plywood desk and signed her onto the World Wide Web for the first time. Mom and Dad say I should only use it for homework, but I mostly use it to look up music, Stephanie said. The computer was encased in aqua blue and white plastic. Twinkling lights from the living room Christmas tree reflected in the screen. As Stephanie logged on, the modem screeched and buzzed. "You've got mail," the computer announced. Stephanie clicked with the mouse and tapped a few keys, and pictures popped up on the screen. There were boy bands in matching white suits and rectangular sunglasses. Stephanie clicked again and showed Aaron teenage pop starlets strolling red carpets in stiletto heels and metallic skirts with their midriffs exposed. She signed her record contract when she was 15, Stephanie said about one singer. She was just like us, and now look at her. The singer didn't look like she had much in common with either of them. She had silky brown hair swept back by a wind machine. In one hand, she held a microphone. With the other, she reached out toward an audience of thousands. "She's pretty," Aaron said. "So pretty," Stephanie agreed, pulling her leg up onto the chair. "And she puts on an amazing show. What do you think that's like? All those people listening to everything you say and yelling your name? It must be so crazy. I asked my mom to sign me up for singing lessons, but she said I can't do them both and ballet." Last Sunday, Erin had sung in front of her church for the annual Christmas pageant, her voice airy and sweet as she invoked the angel Gabriel appearing to Mary. Before Erin had hit the highest note, she'd taken a deep breath and felt a rush of air and power fill her chest. "Maybe we could start a band together someday," Stephanie said. "That sounds fun," Erin admitted. The singer wore a shiny pink tube top. "It's pleather," Stephanie explained, and her stomach was bare and dusted with a constellation of glitter. Erin liked looking at her, and this feeling repulsed her. "I don't think we should look at these anymore," she said quietly. "Why not? She's stirring up lust. That's a sin." "Maybe they're just enjoying the show." "That outfit," Erin said, pointing to the singer's abs, "is designed to make men feel lust." "Okay," Stephanie shrugged and clicked away from the photo. "Sorry if I made you uncomfortable." Erin pulled herself up from the desk, feeling strangely disappointed. Her parents had warned her that living for Christ meant being misunderstood, rejected, or even martyred. They hadn't prepared her for polite disengagement. And I'll stop there.